Oh my god, my ears are the sweatiest. It's so
Mmm.
sticky in here, man. It's ridiculous.
Delicious.
Alright, so merch time, folks. As is quickly becoming the tradition, every time we release a new podcast, there is a new line of apparel out there for you to buy, should you choose to. Or at the very least, go over and have a look and enjoy the meminess of it all. The link is in the show notes there, Bill. You can go check it out. This month, the theme is licorice. And I created the licorice line, which is basically just a hoodie, 2 shirts and a cup that says the word Team Licorice, so you can like show the world that you are on board with the one true confectionery item. So go check those out. Links in the show notes. Have a look. Next month, there's some other nonsense will be up there to check out too.
Excellent. I'm not going to be buying anything this month, Edgar.
You're not actually. It'll be really interesting to see if what the stats are like in regards to people buying it. Like, will the licorice lovers come out in force? Please do, because again, we need to licorice support. Now, so that's merch. Very quick. Next thing in follow up that I wanted to just quickly mention is that I've been making the climate videos of late. And u/Vulcan Trekkie, regular who appears on the show, made a climate flowchart. Links are in the description, and it's basically, it is what it says on the tin. You want to create climates for your world, you can either do my method or do their flowchart. And I think their thing is really cool. It's dependent on knowing temperatures, or at least guessing temperatures. Heads up. Just for going in. But for the sheer fact that Vulcan Trekkie put together this really daunting looking flowchart, I think it's worth shouting out. So go check those out, folks.
Yes, go check it out. It's a really it's a pretty intense chart. It's very impressive.
It is definitely impressive, and it takes. It's easy to think that it's it's got like whatever 50 different fields here or whatever. That must have taken them 50 minutes, a minute per field, something like that. And it's never like that. It's always like exponentially more. So I can imagine this took many, many, many hours. And so, yeah, go check it out and show some love for Vulcan Trekkie. Bill, what have you got
Edgar?
in follow-up for us this month?
2 emails we want to take a quick look at.
Cool.
The first is from Hannes B.
Hannes B. Maybe German. Hannes sounds very, very German. If so,
Yeah,
willkommen.
It's fun to sound. So Hannes B was going to ask about swimming. They actually find swimming under the water easier than swimming on the surface, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, once you get down there, maybe the issue is getting down there.
But the main thing they wanted to ask about was about Janspar. So that's one of my settings, the one I'm a little bit more tight-lipped about. Everything that I publish about it is from an in-universe perspective. Mm-hmm. So their point was, I ran a D&D game set in Janspar. It's their understanding that the game has mechanical things connected to the world building of a sort of a typical setting. There are spells that refer to the different planes, like, if you want to do something with fire, it refers to the elemental plane of fire. And so did I have to change game mechanics to play in Janspar is the thrust of the question here. And by running a D&D game in Janspar, does that mean that I accepted all the base assumptions of the game? Mind flayers and planes of existence and things like that.
So can I cut across you really quick? Mind flayers,
yes.
Are they a D&D thing, or is that a Stranger Things thing?
It's a D&D thing.
Oh, okay. So the kids in Stranger Things call the demon that because they play a load of D&D.
Yeah, the 2 opponents are both named after D&D things. Like in season 1, it's the Demogorgon, which is a prince of demons in one of the original D&D settings in Greyhawk, I think.
Oh, see,
And
that I knew because they kind of explicitly referenced that. I remember them taking out a book and then being like, "Look, that's the monster," but I didn't remember that happening for the Mind Flayer. But that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, they do that for season 2 as well. And I think it's really funny because the Mind Flayer in the show is like a vastly more dangerous opponent than the Demogorgon from the original season, from the first season. And in game terms, Mind Flayers are like fairly tough, but the Demogorgon is a literal prince of demons. But anyway, so the thing I'd say here, this is an interesting thing about to what extent do the rules of the game define your world building, and how those two ideas impact each other, the flavor and the crunch, as the fan terms are.
Wait, crunch?
So the crunch is rules, and flavor is setting.
Sure. Okay.
And they're not totally separable. You can't totally divorce them in a lot of cases. But I would say no. That the fact that I was using a certain rule set doesn't mean that it necessarily takes on all of the assumptions of the setting that was originally written for. So I was playing with Pathfinder specifically. Mm-hmm. And sure, there are spells in that game which refer directly to, say, planes of existence. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the planes of existence have to exist in my game. I could not use spells that refer to that, if I felt that they didn't fit in. Like, you could just say that, instead of coming from the elemental plane of fire, the power of the spell comes from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Using a certain rules framework doesn't mean you have to accept every single assumption of the writers. It's magic, and you can come up with a different explanation for it if you want. Mind Flayers, strictly speaking, they're not in Pathfinder because they're Wizards of the Coast intellectual property, and Pathfinder is not published by Wizards of the Coast, so they had to let go of a lot of the traditional D&D monsters when they released it. And certain things they weren't able to carry over. So I don't think... No, we never came across them in the Ansper game that I ran. And as to whether they exist in the broader Janspar, who knows? Except they can't, because they're intellectual property of a very litigious company. But who knows?
When you were creating the game of Janspar, did you find yourself having to do a lot of this renaming things?
No, because it never really came up.
Okay, all right. So it didn't really matter then for you that you were running your own setting. It just all worked normal. It was fine.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. Like in practical terms, it's very often not a big deal. Now, if you want to do something that's radically different to a standard fantasy setting, then you might run into problems with with the assumptions the game makes.
Sure.
But I was just doing a fantasy setting that had some differences to a normal one, but nothing that required that much mechanical change to the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that was an interesting question, purely because I'm imagining a lot of people want to run, given that we like world building here. I'm assuming a lot of people would want to run their own worlds, and imagine that's a thing that they worry about. Can I make what I've done fit within the context of Pathfinder or D&D or whatever? So that's cool that it didn't take too much effort to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, they are designed so they can be used fairly generically. And I mean, if you listen to any developers or designers for most games, unless it's a very, very specific tie-in with something, they are aware of the needs to make things flexible and the need to make things, generic or capable of being generic. So yeah, my main advice would just don't be too tied to specifics. Feel free to change things for the setting that you want.
Yeah, one of the rules is you can change the rules.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, in Pathfinder, possibly in other games as well, that's called Rule 0. The main thing is that it should be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. Next email? Last email?
Yeah, this is our last email for this episode, for this month.
No, hey!
We got an email from Samson DeBarba, who has a couple of points to bring up. First of all, thanks for the podcast. They watched the first several seasons of Stargate SG-1 and its class. They started the Battlestar Galactica reboot, and have downloaded the Dune audiobook. I guess this is all stuff we've recommended at some point. The map-making videos are brilliant, Edgar.
Thanks, Samson.
And they have thoroughly rectified some maps and have created some new potential story ideas in the process. So that's pretty good.
Excellent. That's cool. I'm glad to hear. That's awesome.
Okay, so questions. Primus, question the first. Will Bill ever appear on the main channel, perhaps as a culture building segment? The wider world of Artifexian needs Bill. That is an awfully kind thing to say.
Well,
thank you very much.
Now, would you appear on the main show? And like,
I mean,
how comfortable are you with like because the main channel obviously has a much larger audience than the podcast. How comfortable are you with like tens of thousands, potentially like 100, 200,000 people hearing you, knowing about you, etc.?
Fairly.
Okay, all right.
Fairly. I mean, the only issue is that like I'll be appearing beside you, and you like I'll just look so much less handsome in comparison.
What?
But yeah, I mean, I don't. That's obviously a decision for you to make as the video channel guy. But I wouldn't be opposed to making a guest appearance.
Do you know what? I genuinely never thought about it until this email came in. And culture building is so far down the road that like that's why I didn't think about these things. But like that would be class. I think we should definitely do it.
Okay.
Definitely. It's just I would imagine it's going to be years away because I'm really slow.
That's fine.
Luckily, we have a podcast to keep us ticking over.
This is true.
So, Secundus,
question the second. Samson has been listening to Welcome to Night Vale, and they're up to episode 40. Thank you, Edgar. Did you recommend Night Vale?
I think I what's the opposite of recommend, man? What's that word?
Disrecommend.
Dissuaded?
Okay, hold on. Recommend antonym. Reject, veto. None of those really work in this context.
No, I didn't recommend, I suppose is the neatest way of saying it. I remember saying, like, ages ago, that I tried to listen to Welcome to Night Vale, but they were in the middle of whatever they were doing, and I found it hard to just pick up in the middle. I have a similar issue with, there's a podcast called The Adventure.
Disrecommend is a word. Amazing.
What's a word?
Disrecommend is a word.
Oh, very interesting. I have a similar issue with, like, there's a great podcast called The Adventure Zone, which I actually really like, but I find it difficult to get into it mid-flow. They're basically a D&D podcast, and it's hilarious. It's great. But it's just, if you're not there from the beginning, it's very hard. So that was my thoughts on Welcome to Night Vale. But I think you, Bill, listened to it and really liked it. And I think you were the one who recommended it.
Yeah, no, I haven't listened to it in ages. It's been about, maybe it's been a year since I was really into it. And I went back to the start and I was listening through. But yeah, there's something I really enjoy about it. I guess ultimately it's a story of community in the face of terrifying abject horror. The community itself is often quite horrifying and terrifying, but it's still a community. So yeah, there's something I do enjoy about it. But anyway, the thrust of the question is, outside of world building, what are your go-to YouTube channels or other media producers? What entertains or enthralls?
You take it, man.
I mainly on YouTube, I just watch a lot of music YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's mostly what I do. I'm sure I've mentioned him before, but Adam Neely is a very good channel.
Amazing.
A lot of the time you do need a fair bit of music theory background to understand it, but not always. I'm just going to scroll through my subscriptions here and throw out some other recommendations. 12 Tone, they're great.
Mm-hmm.
They do both videos on advanced theory and song analysis videos. 8-Bit Music Theory. I'm not sure if he's come back yet. Oh, he has. Yeah, he was away for a while. There's a guy called David Bruce, composer, who he is a composer, as you may have guessed, and does quite kind of similar to Adam Neely, that kind of thing. Rick Beato was kind of interesting. I don't think he's a great teacher. I think you have to have a pretty good grasp to understand or to follow him. He kind of jumps all over the place, but he really, really knows his stuff. So if you have a little bit, he's good to follow. And then other than theory stuff, I like Anthony Fantano, who's a music critic. He has a channel called The Needle Drop, where he reviews albums and things. But he's got a side channel called Fantano, where he does shorter reviews and just kind of talks about topics, just like turns on his camera and talks about some topic in music industry news. And he'll do like, he'll solicit things to argue about on his Twitter. So he'll have a let's argue, and people give controversial opinions or things like that, and he'll discuss them on videos. Oh. So I like that channel a lot. And outside music, I quite enjoy Name Explain.
Oh yes, Name Explain, yes.
Native Lang in the Ling Tube, if that's a thing, side of things. And occasionally I'll watch like crafty YouTube. There's a channel called Primitive Technology.
Yes.
Which is very, very slow, and it's just guys building things with kind of Stone Age materials.
Oh my god,
it's very entertaining.
It's so good. It's so good. I love it. Myself and the captain watch it as well. It's great.
I don't watch it a lot, but I enjoy it when I do. What about you, Edgar?
What have I got? Outside of Worldbuilding, I'm going to say outside of Worldbuilding and Conlang, Easy German is a YouTube channel I like watching. It's like a vox pop channel where people go out and talk to German people about whatever, and you get to hear Germans talk naturalistically. It's good for anyone who's like mid-level to advanced, has mid-level to advanced German. What else? Chain Bear, I think is his name. Let me just double check that. It's a Formula One channel who goes through like the science of Formula One.
Formula One, really?
Yeah, Chain Bear F1. I really like Formula One.
Okay.
I enjoy listening to classical music with the any sort of generic classical music video that has a score on it. I enjoy listening to that. I don't know actual channels; they just show up in my recommendation. I'm a big fan of PewDiePie because, especially now with Minecraft, he's doing class work with Minecraft. I really enjoy it. Podcast Land. What have I got? Again on YouTube, The Great War is an amazing YouTube channel. They do one episode on every week of the First World War.
Okay.
And I really like the whole aesthetic of it. Like your man who's doing it, Indy Nidell, at least at the start, he looks like he's from 1914. He's drew the set's cool and it's very interesting. Podcast Land. I've mentioned Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. It's very good. Shout out to the Blind Boy podcast.
Oh yes, definitely.
Non-Irish people probably won't get it. It's one of Ireland's like leading comedian, social commenters. Person just talking into a mic for an hour, and just it's hilarious and random and wonderful. The Star Wars Minute podcast, they're currently on hiatus, but I really enjoyed it. It's each episode of the podcast analyzes a single minute of a movie in the Star Wars franchise. They are about to start Rogue One. And yeah, there's others obviously, but I don't think they're entirely relevant or people wouldn't really enjoy them. Yeah, that's it. That's all that. And then I suppose on Netflix, there's lots of great war documentaries that I like watching on Netflix. Big into my war at the moment, Bill. Particularly World War One. World War One was just a crazy time, and I just love learning about the history of it, because I until like very recently I just didn't know very much about it, but now I'm thoroughly enthralled.
It doesn't get as much exposure in the media as World War II.
Yeah, well, obviously because World War II was just so horrific. But like, it's just it's in some ways I find it way more interesting, because it's like, it was the first war where modern warfare happened, like, and you have the old world butting heads with the new world. You have people like the French army, for example. They dressed like they do in Napoleon times, but they had machine guns, and it just this crazy. Like, they didn't have helmets at the start because they were like, who needs a helmet? Things like that, and every leader in around the First World War were just like incompetent. Like, so much of it could have been avoided if they just were like competent generals. And it's just this crazy, like, and it was started like not in the best interest of the persons who started, like the guy who shot Franz Ferdinand. Like, Franz Ferdinand was a huge proponent of the Slavs, and a Slav shot Franz Ferdinand. It's like, that wasn't exactly the right call there, and it's just this mess of things that just went utterly wrong and resulted in this like just like all out devastation. And it's fascinating learning about all that playing out. Anyhow, I'm wondering. We'll move on.
And there's one more question here from Samson. Samson is planning to go back to university and is considering Dublin. So, any insight into the reality of the city?
Oh, do you want to talk about this, or are you long enough out of the city that you don't want to talk about it?
I'm long enough out of the city that I don't know if I have anything useful to say. Housing is pretty rough at the moment. That's one thing. Including, or perhaps especially for students. It's very expensive and not of very high quality. Because our government is tied to a market ideology solution to housing, which has been shown to fail repeatedly. So there's that to consider.
I mean, that's the thing I was going to say. That's the main consideration. Like, if you're thinking about studying in Dublin, I'd actually say don't. And I know that's really anti-patriotic and stuff, but like, you can get a better education for cheaper, like, on the continent. Yeah, like for example, the captain is looking at going back and doing a master's at some stage, and we were looking around at countries that offered free education. Loads popped up in Europe. Austria seemed like a really cool place for that to happen. Totally free education, nowhere near as expensive as Dublin. Beautiful country, and like, connected to other countries. So if you want to you could take a weekend trip to the Czech Republic or Germany or Italy. Like, you can go see more of the world. You're not stuck in an island. So like, whilst I really do love Ireland, I wouldn't really recommend studying here. Or at least not for 4 years if you're doing an undergrad. Like, if you want to come for a 1-year master's, that's cool. You won't bankrupt yourself. But a 4-year thing, like, you're gonna end up throwing an awful lot of money down the drain.
Yeah, so that would be my chief concern. Outside of that, I mean, you currently live there. I don't. It's a cool city though. There's, it's fun. There's a nice atmosphere, I think. Yeah, there's stuff to do, and there's stuff to see. Maybe not 4 years worth if you're thinking of doing another undergrad, but.
I mean, I don't think there's 4 years worth of seeing anything in any city. Like, if you live in Paris, I don't think there's 4 years worth of attractions to see. There's only like 30, maybe 40. You get those done in a year. Totally would. I mean, it's a nice. I don't know if I'd agree with it's a nice city, Bill.
No.
It's very. Like the thing that people always say, like, oh, Dublin has character.
Yeah.
And it's always unsure as to whether character is a positive or a negative thing. There's a lot. It's not very modern, this city. Like, it's in many places it's very run down. Which again you can see as character and as being kind of like cool and oldie, or you can see it as just being like a not functioning city. there are, like in every city, I suppose.
I mean, they're making a great attempt to gentrify the absolute hell out of it.
They
by
are
building hotels everywhere.
They are. No, that's fair. They are. Like with every city, there are like social problems. I think in certain areas of Dublin, those social problems are very amplified. I live in an area where those social problems exist, and it's a little bit infuriating. Like we had a massive police thing happen just outside the door 2 days ago. 2 days ago, there was some huge brawl or something at the bar across the road, and there were like several police cars. There was shouting, and these things happen on the regular in Dublin. In certain areas, like if you go to like the super posh areas, like obviously it doesn't happen as much. But there are a lot of pockets where there are social problems, and no one seems to want to do anything about it. So like that's a thing to bear in mind. Yeah, and the public transport doesn't work, so
public transport isn't great. Yeah, I mean, I've just come back from I was in the UK for about a week. I just think it's so much friendlier than London.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Oh no, like, definitely.
London is so impersonal.
Yeah.
And like people aren't much crack, but I think people are generally a bit friendlier and a bit more crack in Dublin. But then they also are in Manchester. I was in Manchester briefly as well, and that was quite a fun city, and it runs quite well and things. So look, I really like Dublin, and I think it's a cool place. But it's not without its problems, and housing would be my chief concern there.
Yeah, for sure. I love Dublin too, but it's sort of in the sense of like, if you own a pet that has like 3 legs and is incontinent or whatever, like you love that animal, but like it's not like you would advise people to go out and try and get a 3-legged incontinent animal. Do you know what I mean?
I understand.
Of world building importance, I was at a wedding. I was at the captain's father's wedding.
Oh, wonderful.
And he got married to a German lady, so there was kind of German traditions mixed into I was going to say a traditional Irish wedding, but it wasn't a traditional Irish wedding. It was a bit more kind of modern than a traditional Irish wedding. Some of the one of these traditions I just want to talk about in the sort of sense of like getting people to think about like how ceremonies are done in their world and that sort of thing, and to solicit kind of emails and Reddit comments about how people tackle ceremonies in their world. And this tradition was a thing called Polterabend, which apparently happens in Germany. I never heard of it before this, and it's kind of like a celebration before the wedding, for all the people who can't show up, like a less formal sort of thing. And one of the kind of games, I suppose, or symbolic rituals that they do is everyone brings along plates, like delf. And they all smash the plates.
Crockery.
Sorry?
I'm not sure delf is used outside Ireland.
Okay, well, what is plates, like ceramic plates?
Crockery, yeah.
Yeah, crockery. Everyone brings along some item of crockery, and they all smash the crockery on the floor. And it is the wedding couple's responsibility to clean up all the shards of crockery. And the symbolism there is that it's like marriage is about tackling problems together. So like the guests in a fun way present this first problem, and the two of them have to overcome it together. That's the symbolism. And apparently there's similar things done with like logs, where the couple have to like saw a log in half. And again, it's this idea of like there is a problem to solve, you have to do it together. And then on top of that, there's a cool little like side thing where just as the couple are getting all the crockery into a nice pile and ready to sweep it up, it's customary for the guests to go and like walk through it and redistribute it. And it can go on for apparently ages, and people can take up like big handfuls and like transport them over to like the other side of the road and things like that. And it was really fun. It was really, really fun. The Irish people didn't know what the hell was going on. But once we all kind of copped that this is a kosher thing to be at, it was great crack. And it got me thinking about like rituals and ceremonies, particularly around the idea of like marriage and unions and things, and how these work in different worlds. So I just thought I'd solicit some comments based on that.
That's very cool.
Have you done anything like this in any of your worlds? Anything to do with unions and ceremonies, that sort of jazz?
Not really. No, nothing. Nothing comes to mind. I mean, I have one culture in Janspar. I think it was in Janspar where marriage is treated quite differently, but I didn't go into any of the specifics or the ceremony or anything.
How is marriage treated differently? Can you talk about this? I can't.
Hold on, I'll see if I can. It's been a while since I did it. I'll see if I can find the document here and give you a summary of the in-universe thing.
While you're looking, another thing that I'm interested in looking up, I've yet to do it, is I wonder, is there equivalent in like traditional Ireland of this plate smashing thing? Like, what are traditional Irish rituals surrounding marriage, or even just rituals in general? Like, I know we have things like the wake for funerals, which I think is very Irish, or at least very kind of Celtic. But I don't know of anything around surrounding marriage, and I think that might be a fun thing to investigate.
There's the Child of Prague.
The Child of Prague.
Yeah.
What is the Child of Prague?
So the Child of Prague is a particular sculpture of like the child Jesus. So it's like you can buy it as a statue, and the tradition of it is some day before the wedding, it's like the last Saturday before the wedding, you leave it outside the back door overnight. And that is meant to make sure that there will be good weather on the day of the wedding. Something like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do we still do this in modern times? I've never seen this done.
Some people do, yeah. Let me see, I've got it here. Yeah, they place a copy of the statue outside their homes, hoping for good luck and good weather on the wedding day. So yeah, it's like sometime beforehand they leave it outside, and it's like a good luck thing to have a nice wedding day.
The hoping for good weather is a futile task. Never happens. I say this as it is currently lashing outside. It's like it's always raining in Ireland. It's ridiculous.
That's the only one that comes to mind. I guess like claddagh rings are a thing, but they're not specifically a wedding thing.
Well, hang on. Do you want to explain claddagh rings? I have no context at all for this. The only context I have for any sort of like rituals in Ireland is just like the Catholic Church. So, but outside of that, in a secular sort of sense, I have no idea. So like tell away there, Bill.
So the claddagh ring is, I think it comes from somewhere in Galway, and it's a ring. You wear it on your finger, and on the top there's like two hands holding a heart, and the heart sometimes has a crown on top.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a traditional design, and there is a superstition or tradition associated with it that if you're in a relationship or you're in love, you wear the ring so that the point of the heart is pointing up your finger, so therefore like towards your own heart, and if you're not, it points the other way. I don't know whether that's a legit thing or it's a modern invention.
And so hang on, is the claddagh ring it's not an engagement type thing, it's just a general ring that you can wear every day?
Well, I think it can be used as such, but not exclusively as such.
Okay, interesting.
No, I'm not 100% sure about this, but there are some kind of traditions like that associated with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you found your thing on Janspar?
I have not. No, I don't know where it is.
Sure, we can weed it out next show. It can be follow up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Loosely related to the notion of traditions, and very loosely related to the notion of ceremonies. Did you ever see a broom dance being performed, Bill?
Never seen one in real life. No, I know of them, but
so
I've never actually seen one.
So for people who, like Bill, who have never seen them or aren't Irish, Broom dances are what they say on the tin. It's like the session is like the music session is a big thing in Irish culture, particularly in rural Irish culture, more so than urban Irish culture. And as part of that, like the musicians would be playing their jigs and reels and that sort of crack, and you may have a dancer who gets up and they dance with the broom, with like just a bog ordinary broom, and there's like a whole like set of steps that go with it, and there's a whole like culture behind it, which I think is really cool. I saw it happen once, and it was like disconcertingly loud, because there's a lot of, I didn't anticipate just how much like the broom is smashed against floors. Like it's not just like lightly placed and stuff. Again, for people, so you'll dance with the broom upright, like dance around it and make leg shapes around it, but you'll also lay it down on the floor and like dance over it. And like there's no laying it down. It's like you throw it down almost like you're kind of posturing, like it's a proper like thump. And I remember being
that.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember being so loud, but it was great crack. It was wonderful crack. The Irish session is a beautiful tradition to behold. I think it's great. But that is only marginally related to the notion of marital ceremonies.
Yeah, I can't think of any others. I'm sure there are ones that I just kind of can't bring to mind, or I don't realize that they're specifically Irish.
Yeah,
because nearly all the weddings I've been to have been Irish weddings.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so yeah, again, if you've worked on stuff like this for your world, leave it in the Reddit or an email. We'd like to hear about it. Like, we might read out some in follow up next time. So, Bill, how about we now do some world building, and then we'll get back to my thing later, and then we'll just do a tic tac.
A tic tac,
like to tic tac, to back and forth. Tic tac. Have you never heard that before?
That is new to me. Nope, never heard that before in my life.
I think it's a businessy thing, as in like go tic tac with like HR. I think that's the word. You're making me tic tac. Wait, hold on. How do I Google this? To tic tac.
Tic tac verb.
Okay, maybe I'm totally wrong. I'll leave it in and someone on the internet will tell me. Anyhow, world building.
So this month, I have returned to romance.
To romance?
And, yes.
But does it not have a proper name now?
Oh, it does, of course. Sorry, yes. To Ecairn.
To Ecairn.
I've returned to Ecairn. And I have another letter written by someone we've heard from before.
Oh, my man Dashag. Dashag? Yes, we've heard about it before. Anyway.
Dashag.
Do you want to crack into it?
Avdien, thank you as always for your letters last month. My recuperative period in Altfev has come to an end, and I have returned to more vigorous duties. The passage to Lansk was uneventful, utterly lacking in parties and poets, and the dreary journey so soon after the whirlwind of society that entertained me so in Altfev was dreadful to bear, save only for your letters of home and your tales of your own exploits. I wish I could tell you that the posting here in Lansk has been more engaging. Though I am restored to full duties after my recovery, the daily routine of parades and exercises, as well as my administrative tasks, have numbed my mind nearly as much as the surgeon's soporifics I grew so familiar with last year. I shouldn't paint so dismal a picture. Though the work itself has been dull, and I am starved for society outside my fellow officers, Lansk has been an exciting place for other reasons. You may have heard of the discontent brewing here, and perhaps some similar agitation has grown in Mearsphere. The lower classes and groundsfolk are demanding greater pay and improved conditions of labour. That their lives may be difficult, I do not doubt. You know I am not without compassion. But it is certain that Urfani agitators seeking to undermine lawful rule and subvert the trade of the companies are behind this recent movement. I shall tell you of an event last week. Though I was not involved, I had a magnificent view of the whole proceedings. First, do you know of Baurin Te Eintov? He is the chief bailiff of Lansk and a fellow Misviri by birth. He is a fine man, a great counsellor and a cunning opponent, as you shall see. I think your father and his mother may have had business together one time. I have not yet had the pleasure of a meeting with him, but I shall find out all I can as soon as I am able. Last week, there was a demonstration for greater wages, held in a broad field often used for fairs and travelling markets, lying on the river between the quays and a small hill. This had somehow been arranged without coming to the attention of the prefects or the company's guards. But once word began to spread among the groundsfolk, a large crowd gathered, and the employers of the city were crying for the return of their workers. I was not assigned any duties that morning, and was thus able to view the entire affair from my apartments. The mob gathered, and was awaiting the arrival of an orator, a woman from Vilv by the name of Yathara, known for her firebrand speeches and utter disrespect for authority. I heard later that the militia, having failed to stop the gathering, intercepted the speaker on her way to the field, but her supporters blocked their arrest and she escaped to the riverbank, where an Arthani vessel removed her from their jurisdiction and delivered her safely to the field. And sure enough, I saw the vessel deposit a small band of people into the crowd, whereupon a makeshift stage was mounted and speeches began. Baron's militia refused to march upon the crowd, not wishing to arrest their own kin or face reprisals for interference. Though this mutiny could not be punished immediately, they were instead ordered to gouge the edges of the crowd and prevent any more from joining its ranks. Baron instead sent for a company of Tamari Marines, which were granted to him immediately, as well as a patrol craft. With the crowd absorbed in the oration and hemmed in by the militia, a most neat manoeuvre was undertaken. The patrol vessel hovered over the crest of the hill, seeming merely to observe the proceedings, while a company of Marines marched around the city and gained the far side of the hill from the field, and thus were unseen by the mob. The patrol vessel issued a lawful warning for the gathering to disperse, and this was not heeded by the agitators, but incited them to greater chants and songs. Their enthusiasm was doubtless inflamed by rhetoric and cheap Arthani spirits. As the passion of the crowd grew, the Marines crested the hill and panic overtook the mob. The vessel sent a warning shot from its lower battery, striking the water near the Arthani vessel that had delivered Yathara, but the Marines stormed down the hill to seize the stage and hold its occupants in custody. A terrific brawl ensued. Elements of the mob attempted to flee, finding dissent and agitation no longer to their taste, only to be held back by the clubs of the militia, whose duty had finally overcome their timidity. Others attempted to storm the stage and gain the freedom of their leaders, only to be cut down by the Marines. Those that tried to escape to Arthani vessels in the river found their allies unwilling to approach the shore while it was being lightly bombarded by the patrol vessel's batteries. The militia were at length instructed to arrest any leaders of the trouble and agitation, and allow the rest of the crowd to return to their homes. A fine end to a troublesome quarrel, most unsuited to the Abesque spirit of adventure. Talk in the officers' club is that the mob was as many as 20,000 people strong, and Yathara yet remains in custody in Baron's court. Despite their ill-thought attempt to take the stage, the number of dead in the crowd scarcely numbers in the dozens. Agitators such as these shall not receive so warm a welcome in our dear Mirsphere, I suspect. Do return my letter with all haste. I do not expect the city to provide such diversion again soon, and I have yet to find the equal of the society I so enjoyed in Othvever at home. Please tell me what other accounts of this affair have reached Mirsphere, and the attitude of the groundsfolk to these agitations. In the meanwhile, I shall find out more of Baron's people, and his business with your family. Perhaps we may find a pretense for you to come visit me. Your friend, Dajag Tashensha, Lieutenant, Tamar Company.
Cool.
Thank you.
That, my friend, is a lot of writing this week. Well played. You said you were up against it with the writing, and yet you managed to churn out such a lengthy work. That's amazing.
I was okay. It's 1,058 words. Okay. I was very tired one of the days I was away, and I wasn't like that up to going around and seeing things. So I sat in cafes and sketched down the outlines of this, and then I put it together last night.
Cool. It's really good. It's really like it. I really like it. Again, with Edgar's interrogation things, one of the questions that often springs to mind when I think of your writing is, why are you writing about this? Same thing applies here. Why are you writing about this? Has something... why protests in particular? Is this any real-world issues spring to mind here?
Yes.
Yes. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I recently learned of the Peterloo massacre.
Peterloo
massacre,
no idea
which
what
took place in Manchester in August 1819. So nearly exactly 200 years ago. 200 years ago, a week from the recording date. It was on the 16th of August 1819. And it was a very similar situation. A crowd of people gathered in St. Peter's Field in Manchester, and they were basically protesting low wages and new corn laws had come in, which had made food a lot more expensive, and it greatly increased the cost of living for the working class. And they wanted better wages and better working conditions and better suffrage, because at the time, Manchester didn't actually have any representation in Parliament. There was a Parliament in England at the time, but it was extremely corrupt and actually provided very little representation for a lot of people. So that was the background of it. And a famous speaker was called our famous speaker made an appearance to speak there. And the local magistrates called on the constables, I think, local special constables, and also on a regiment of hussars, who are like cavalry troops, to break up the gathering. And I think 18 people were killed immediately. More died from their injuries afterwards, and hundreds upon hundreds were injured. And it was given the name Peterloo as a reference to Waterloo, which had happened 4 years earlier. I can't figure out why exactly. I can't figure out if the press gave it that name to celebrate the victory of the legitimate forces of law and order over the enemy, or if it was in reference to kind of like the horror of war and it being a massacre. I can't figure out exactly what the intention of that was.
I mean, I would naturally go towards the latter there.
That it was a celebration of.
No.
Or that it was the horrors of war.
Yeah, like as in the suffix, much like we use the suffix "gate" to mean like a massive scandal. I could easily imagine "loo" being a suffix for like a disastrous, violent event.
Yeah, but you see, the British won at Waterloo.
Violent event?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I don't really, as I said, I can't figure it out. That seems likely, but it also seems kind of unpatriotic and quite radical to call it that at that time particularly. So, anyway, I don't know. I'm going to have to look more into it.
And so this Peterloo thing, was this a peaceful demonstration? Oh, so like there was no violence was occurring at all. It's just that the authorities just like overstepped their remit.
Well, whether they overstepped their remit is like legally debatable at the time. But yeah, there was a radical protest, and there was a massacre. Civilians were attacked by military, and it kind of, they didn't really have police at that time, but like enforcement forces. And
so you've essentially just, and I don't mean this in an offensive way at all, you've just like verbatim copied it in this story, basically.
It's not exactly the same, but it's broadly similar, yeah.
Broadly similar.
It's quite similar.
Yeah, do I detect that our friend Deshag the Shensha is a bit dismissive of the needs and wants of the quote groundsfolk?
Oh my, yes.
He keeps referring to things as the agitators, and I was getting really annoyed by that. I was like, shut up.
Well,
you know what?
they were agitating. Like, it's literally accurate, but it's...
Yeah, but it's really dismissive, the way he says that.
Yeah.
And like the way he kind of like celebrates, I can't remember exactly the number you gave, but only a handful of people died. And it was kind of like, great success. I'm like, well, hang on now. A handful of people died. Like, come on. Like, this is not a success.
Yeah. Scarcely in the dozens.
Yeah, like, like that's, that means, at least, what would that mean? At least 13? That is by definition scarcely in the dozens.
I guess.
Like if authorities just like murdered 13 people, like there's no way that's that you can be all like, yay, great day out. Like that's he's being a real dick, this guy Deshag. Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is, your thing about the whole like demanding greater pay and improve conditions of labor, that made me think about, obviously unions and things like that. And then I was like, I wonder what the political system is here. So can you elaborate on this? Like, what sort of regime are the groundsfolk people living under, and what are they looking to change?
So as I've kind of touched on before, it's quite an uneven society, and it's got elements of colonialism and early capitalism in how it operates, like with the licensed prospectors, that being a career, like going abroad to find other industries to exploit abroad is a profession within the Abesk culture. So, as an extension of that, it doesn't have great labor conditions. Think of an industrial revolution situation, an early industrial revolution. Right. It's not quite at that level of technology, but economically, it's a similar kind of thing. People have to work long hours, and workers have very little control of their labor. And unions aren't really a thing. But this is the beginning of a movement to gain more fairness for workers.
Right, and like a beginning of perhaps the creation of unions?
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool. The other things, I know that this is not hugely interesting to people listening, but like you say words sometimes, and I'm like, the hell does he mean by this? So I just need definitions off you here really quick, and then I'm done. What on earth is the surgeon's soporifics? What is a soporific?
It's a drug that makes you sleepy.
Is that a archaic term?
Don't know.
Can you go to your GP and be all like, yo, load me up with some soporifics?
I mean, it's like, I guess that would probably be a little archaic sounding. You can use it as an adjective as well, I think. But yeah, you can describe a drug that makes you sleepy or makes you drowsy. So the painkillers that he was given after his war wound that he's alluded to.
Okay, well, hang on, as an adjective. So like someone who's like a lazy person, you might, or like a drowsy person, you might describe them as being soporifical?
No, something that has that effect on other people. Like if someone makes you sleepy or makes you drowsy, then they would be soporific, but not someone who themselves is sleepy or drowsy.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Other terminology things here. You say here that you're this new character, Baurin Te Eintov. Is a chief bailiff. Do you want to define chief bailiff?
Just in Lansk, that is one of the kind of offices of the city government. Not all of the Spire cities are organized the same way. They've got different systems. But by him being the bailiff and being a man of great power, that's kind of like he's in charge of the prefects and the militia and things. So by being the bailiff, that kind of reinforces the idea that it's a very kind of money-based system.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And that was about it. What have you got to say about it?
I was wondering, would you pick up on this? The city and the companies, like the Abesque culture, has no authority once, as in the example given, had no authority once Yatharda was aboard an Urthani vessel on the river, because the Urthani they're a separate nation and they have their own laws, and part of their interaction is that their vessels on the river are sovereign.
Oh,
so,
interesting.
Yeah.
Real world analog here. Does this occur at all in real life? Like, I know the idea of being on, like, international waters, but, like, the notion of, like, the boat in and of itself is a different country. Is that a thing that happens?
Well, I guess embassies are the sovereign property of their home nation, even if they're in another country. And, I mean, I guess part of the reason here is that the Abesque, they fly. They have aircraft. And that is how they get around, and they're not that interested in the river trade as a thing, because they don't need to be. They can fly wherever they want. They don't need to follow the rivers. And so I guess kind of a historical thing at this stage, that the Urthani have always been separate, and that their vessels, because that is the kind of foundation of their culture, are sovereign and closed off to the authority of others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another thing, sorry to pop in my head. I'm sorry, I'm all over the shop here. Deshag.
It's okay.
The last time we saw him, when he was in Otiev, that was the Year Rise party thing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. I got that right. For once, I get these things right, because whenever I listen to myself back in editing, I'm always like, Bill, so this is this, and you're like, no, Edgar, no, it's not. And I'm like, oh, okay, but it must be this, and you're like, no, Edgar, no, it's not. So I nailed one. I'm good.
Well, that's my fault for not sticking with the same characters.
No, not at all. Have you got anything else to say on the thing?
I think that's the gist of it.
Cool. Well, sure. Then will we crack into some of my video comment stuff?
Sure.
So it's been a while because of scheduling stuff, but the last video I released was Climates Part 3, I guess. Dealing with how to work out climate zones on a planet spinning in retrograde motion. Before I have one thing to kind of discuss. Before I launch into that, have you watched it, and do you have thoughts?
I have watched it, and I do have some thoughts.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Just treat everything as though it's going the other way.
Mm-hmm.
What I was surprised by how different the retrograde Earth was. That was very cool, and I thought that was quite fertile for a setting. That you could have something that seems familiar at first, but as you explore it more, things aren't what you expect them to be. Like the Sahara, like North and Central Africa, being was it humid tropical?
Yeah, the way they define it was humid tropical, but they didn't stick really to Köppen, so I don't know what that actually is.
Mm-hmm. It'd be cool if you had somewhere that was similar, and you had an idea of the world map, and you're like, oh, okay, so it's some kind of alternate Earth. But then, you go to North Africa, and it's completely wrong from what you expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun to play with in world building. As a method, like I was talking about before, that I had intuited a fair bit of what you've explained in the climate videos. By looking at the Köppen map of Earth and figuring out from latitude and sea currents and stuff how things were. Since the retrograde Earth was a little bit different to what you expected, do you think that would be a fertile way to play with a retrograde planet, that use retrograde Earth and imitate that way?
Yeah, totally. But I don't know if you're willing to handwave, because I don't know whether or not the same systems that give rise to retrograde Earth is applicable in general. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it would have to be. There would just be, like, there might be stuff we don't know, but I mean, like, Earth isn't magic, so we might just not know why certain things happen.
Yeah, no, but it could be something like this. Like, I don't know, the Sahara became greener because there happened to be this current. Like, let's say, for example, the Sahara became greener because the Gulf Stream happened to weaken by X amount, and that led to that. Like, you don't know whether or not that same level of weakening, for example, or those two things being tied, would occur on every planet. Like, it could be Earth turning out like that could be a product of its like topography, its local topography.
Yeah.
And then that's why, but and so it may not be applicable to any exoplanet. But if you're willing to hand wave, then for sure, yeah.
But surely that applies to this whole endeavor for every planet. Like, there may always be an extra.
Yeah. That agreed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it definitely is fertile, and that's part of the reason why I brought it up. Like, I could have just not and just been like, here's how to do retrograde Earth. But yeah, I thought it was cool. Like that it has been demonstrated that those structures can exist, so that it'd be cool to apply it to fantasy worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were my comments.
Cool. Now my thing I want to point out. There's nothing to do with worldbuilding. It's just the thing that has irked me a little bit, and I just wanted I just need on-air catharsis for this, and that is directions. The internet is very fond of telling me about how directions are inherently meaningless, and I got a lot of this with the Retrograde video, because like the whole video is, the whole shtick is that like the direction of the spin is changed. Overall, the basic thing was like, makes no sense. Because what even is retrograde? That's just a word that means nothing. Downvote, dislike, unsubscribe, that sort of crack. There were several people who genuinely, because direction is a bit weird, who genuinely did need clarification. There was a couple in the sub, and that was fine. But there was others who were very much kind of like just wanted to signal that they understand that that direction is a construct. And so the basic thing here is when you argue about direction being meaningless, as in like a retrograde planet is just a prograde planet viewed from a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
When you argue that, you're arguing semantics, like what we call different things, and people love doing this, but I think what people need to remember is that things physically like have direction. Like a rotating planet can rotate two ways about its axis. Doesn't matter what we call those two ways, but it can. Like that's just an intrinsic property of a rotating structure. And on planets, those different rotation directions give rise to different biomes, right? And again, that's an intrinsic property. And so I just encourage people to like not get so caught up in what we call things. Like what is right, what is left, what is prograde, what is retrograde, what is north, what is down, all that sort of that. That's all semantics. Make sure you think about the physical reality of the thing you're constructing, not just what we call it, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. That seems like a kind of a silly objection.
Yeah, no, in large part it is, and in large part it's people just being like contrary for the sake of being contrary, and demonstrating that they have thought about this. Like in the same way that I was one of these people, so I don't mind bringing this up, will point out that the interior angles of a triangle don't add up to 180 degrees, which is true in the strictest sense.
The interior ones.
The what?
The interior angles don't.
Yes, the interior angles don't. It's true in the strict sense, because you need to specify the reference frame, or not the reference frame, you need to specify where your triangle is being constructed. Like you have to say the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees if you're on a 2D surface. Like that's a correct statement. But if you just say, Yeah, exactly. But if you just say the
Yeah, okay,
interior
yeah.
angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees, it's an inherently meaningless thing. But people,
Well, I mean, if it's not on a 2D surface, is it even a triangle? Because it's a different shape then. If it's in a 3D space, surely.
so as far as I know, I think it is like, except that we would call it a. Oh God, I'm going to get this wrong, but like I think a triangle drawn on like a globe is like a hyperbolic triangle. I think that's the word for
Oh,
it.
okay, right, yeah.
But anyway, the point being that like, it's the sort of like, what even is retrograde is in a similar vein to that. It's like, it's just being pedantic and like failing to acknowledge that we have conventions, like implicit conventions. Like, we don't need to specify a triangle has 180 degrees of the interior angles on a 2D plane, because we just take that for granted. In the same way that like retrograde is the opposite of Earth, and we've defined that in some way. And that's the convention, and we don't need to explicitly state it, nor does it need to be pointed out if a person says prograde without justifying it. Do you know what I mean? But again, I need to stress there were comments on the sub where people were genuinely confused about direction, because direction's a bit trippy, like, and they were fine because they genuinely wanted help with a thing. Again, there was people who were just kind of like, dislike video because you're stupid, and I'm just like, no, you're missing the point. Anyhow, that's my catharsis.
Just like, be aware of which direction the sun goes over, which direction the sun comes from. That's the only relevant thing.
Yeah, exactly. And just hold reference frame, but anyway, so that was that. That was that, and that was German traditions. Unless you have something else to add, shall we move into the green room?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
We're going to do some Bank of Artifexia, folks. So let me just get out the necessary letters, and I also need to just give me a second, Bill. I also need to go get my money collection. Hold on.
Can I open the link?
Yeah, open the link. Go for it.
Oh wow!
Oh. Okay, so this week in Bank of Artifexia, we got I got a letter from a Ben, who immediately, I just want to say props on this like extremely concise letter. Like, this is almost Artifexian script level of conciseness. Like, there's about maybe 5 sentences in this letter, very to the point, like bing bang bush out. It's just like crazy. So anyhow, they say, Dear Edgar and Bill, in this envelope there are multiple banknotes for the Bank of Artifexia, including 5 Canadian dollars, 100,000 Brazilian cruceiros, maybe, 1 Kyrgyzstine, maybe, and 1 Mongolian turug. I hope you enjoy them. I'm also curious to know your opinion on the Manchu gender system and the flag of Toronto. I enjoy the Artifexian podcast and the Artifexian YouTube channel very much. Sincerely, Ben.
Hello, Ben.
So thank you, Ben. So really, before we get to the questions, I just want to talk about these notes. I now have Canadian money, which is awesome. I believe I specifically put out a call for Canadian money the last day, so I'm really glad, Ben, you answered that call. That means a lot to me. And it's 5 Canadian dollars, which in euro, the one true currency, is 3.38.
This is a current Canadian $5. That's like,
this is a current Canadian $5 bill, currently in circulation. Do you know, people always gave out about Canadian money looking a bit like Monopoly money. Like, I don't think that's the case. I think these look like really classy notes.
The transparent thing is kind of crazy.
Yeah, but that's on
the new Bank of England, or the more recent Bank of England notes have that as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's on the Bank of England notes. I think it looks fine, but it doesn't look Monopoly money-esque. Like it.
No, I don't think it looks like Monopoly. It's very, very colourful, and it's a block of colour, which maybe is the comparison they're making. But yeah, I think it looks fine.
I think it looks good. Next, we had the Brazilian Cruzeiros. Now this, I was kind of like, but I have Brazilian money, and then I was like, I have like 1 Brazilian real or whatever, and I was like,
real.
Oh, exactly. And I was like, there's no way they have a 1 bill and then 100,000 bill. Turns out that this bill is no longer in circulation. If I recall correctly, and you can fact check me on this, Bill, I think it went out of circulation in the early 90s.
Okay.
So they must have rejiggered their denominations to get rid of all the zeros. So I don't actually know how much this is worth in terms of euro or dollars, because I couldn't find anything. But that's really cool. So now I have two separate Brazilian banknotes from different eras, which is awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm looking at this here now. So there have been 3 Cruzeiros.
Mm-hmm.
One from 1942 to 1967. Then from 1970 to 1986. And then from 1990 to 1993. So there's gaps between each of those. There's like a 3 or a 4 year gap. A 3 year between the first 2 and 4 year between 2 and 3.
What happened in those gaps, do you think?
Well, I guess they just had something else in between.
This seems like a very inefficient way of sorting out your money system.
Okay, so let's see.
We have the dollar. We don't have the dollar. We have the dollar. We don't have the dollar. We have the dollar. And we definitely don't have the dollar. Like, it's just like, what?
Okay, and then they had the Cruzeiro Real between for like a year, between August 93 and June 94, and then it came to the current Real. Interesting.
Yeah, and I always very thankful when, like, I'm thankful in general, of course, that people would like spend money and time to go send me stuff, but I'm super thankful when people send like rare notes, I suppose. And I'm like, wow, that's really, really amazing. So Ben, thank you so much. The next one is the Kyrgyz teen. I can't pronounce it. It's all in the show notes. You can go check it out. It's 1 Kyrgyz teen, and the cool thing about this is that it is, well, there's 2 cool things. One, it's worth 0.013 euro, which is just nuts to think about. And the other cool thing is that it's almost like a square. It has a very, very, very odd aspect ratio.
Oh yeah, it's not quite square, yeah.
Let me just eyeball, like maybe 1 to like 1.2, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say something like that, yeah.
It's like, it doesn't seem like, I look at it and I'm like, this looks more like a sticker than it does a banknote. Like, it's very odd. And I think that's the first banknote that I have that has this bizarre aspect ratio to it. So that's really cool to have. And I believe I did a quick check before recording. I think that's the first Kyrgyz note I have. So that's awesome.
Did we not have a Kyrgyz som before?
Did we?
It's not named on the map. From wherever the map is from.
Oh, okay. Well, then we didn't. Then
I was sure.
Man, I was sure we did as well.
Because I've got a thing listed here. I've got a link I've looked at before of a Kyrgyz opera singer. Oh no, a Kyrgyz ballerina who is on one of the notes. And there's like, I can't imagine why else I would have ever looked that up.
Yeah. Oh, I must still have it. See, so I keep all the letters.
Yeah.
So I must still have it in the letters and forgot to put it in its slot. So I'll have a look for that. But I think you're right though. Oh God, I hope I haven't lost it. I feel really bad then, particularly if whoever sent it. I'd be like, oh no. Anyway, back on track. The last note that Ben sent in was the 1 Mongolian Turog, which we already have, but I don't think I mentioned this the last time, and just it's a good opportunity to bring it up. It is perhaps the most devalued, is that the correct word, currency that I own, in that like you get the least euro for it. For 1 Mongolian Turog, you get 0.00034 euro, which is bonkers. Like that is just like, I don't understand how this exists, which is nuts. And also, according to Wikipedia, it's the 1 Turog or Togrog and the 5 Togrog are rarely used. So this might be the Mongolian equivalent of the $2 US dollar bill, which I think is class.
Oh, $2 is rarely used.
Yeah, they exist, but like people look at them funny, apparently, if you use them in America. So that is Bank of Artifexia. I did not.
Great.
I should have prepped. And done another call for notes. Do you want to just give me 2 seconds there, Bill? Just open up this bio. You have Argentinian money, don't you? Please.
I thought so, but I don't know where it's gone.
Are you being serious?
Yeah.
Bill, you hurt me.
No, look, if I find it, I'll 100% send it to you. But I don't know where it's gone.
Okay, so let me think. Can I put out another call for notes this month, Bill?
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly looking at the map of the Bank of Artifexia. Two that stick out. No, in fact, I'm going to say 3 that stick out. And I haven't checked as to whether or not they all use their own currency. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But it would be really cool to finish off Scandinavia. So I currently only have Norwegian and Swedish money. Anyone have Finnish, Danish, or Icelandic money? I'm assuming they're 3 separate currencies. Would I be correct in assuming that, Bill?
Yeah. I can't imagine why they wouldn't be. They're all independent countries.
Icelandic money is the kroner, the Icelandic kroner, Denmark.
Danish kroner too.
Danish kroner. I'm assuming they're different. And then Finland. Finland's always off there doing its own thing. It's definitely got its own money. It uses the euro. There you go.
Oh, there we go.
So Finland
that
is
makes things simpler.
Excellent.
I was trying to wonder if I had any Finnish money left over from when I was there. So I guess I always do.
Always do. So then let me change that. Let's say Denmark, Iceland, and I think I'm going to keep it with India. India, to get some Indian money would be awesome. It's a very noticeable blank spot there. So yeah, Denmark, Iceland, India. If anyone has any currency from there, please send it to the address in the show notes. Include some questions in the letter. That make sure you write a letter, because that's more like half the fun. Include some questions, and we'll read them out on air. Yeah.
Cool.
Now, how long do we have left here? So we recorded for like half an hour and a half. Yeah. Do you want to talk about Cloud Atlas real quick?
Sure.
So do you want to give some background here?
So this came up in an email or something last episode,
I think,
as I recall.
Oh no, I think what it was is that someone was asking me what media we're consuming, and I said something to the effect of I'm currently in the process of disliking. No, that's it. Someone asked what media has like let us down, and I was like, I'm currently in the process of being let down by Cloud Atlas.
Right.
And so then I was like, oh, I finished it, and I had thoughts, and I was like, I'll put it in the show notes, and I encouraged you to watch it, and you did, and we're just going to share some thoughts. So,
yeah.
Spoilers ahead.
You go first.
Well, hang on, spoilers ahead.
Spoilers ahead.
You might want to pause and watch the thing. It's 3 hours long. Brace yourself. And then come back, maybe.
Sure.
So my thoughts are, overall, I think on reflection, I kind of enjoyed it. It is trippy. It's weird. It's not always the most well shot thing in the world. Some of the the costumes look a bit crap, really, but that's just an aesthetic thing. I think the main interesting point about it is that I thought of you when watching it, because it was this. I know they're not writing documents in world and things like this, but it felt very Bill. Like there was like,
yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah, like there was different clips. For the listeners, it's basically like there are like 5 small stories. I think it's 5 small stories. 6. There's 6 small stories happening at once, and they cut between them, and they all kind of take place within the same like universe, but they're separated by like vast amounts of time.
Chronologically, there's one in 1849, then the 1930s, the late 1930s. Then there's one in the 1970s, one in 2012. Then one in the 2100s, I forget the exact date, but it's pretty far future. And then there's one in the 2300s.
And so this reminded me a bit, because it was like we get these different snapshots of this world told by the characters. So it's not exactly it definitely isn't diegetic or anything.
Yeah.
But it just reminded me of Bill, and that's part of the reason why I was like, oh, I think Bill should watch it. There was bits in it that, when it was pointed out to me, are a bit problematic. With like the yellow face isn't great.
Yeah.
But I didn't notice that the first time. So sorry, again, for the listeners, one of the future settings is set in Asia.
In Neo-Seoul.
Neo-Seoul.
In future Korea.
Exactly. And at least one of the actors isn't Asian and is kind of in Asian get-up. Like his eyes are like made elongated and things like that. And I actually...
3 that I think can remember.
Yeah. And so the first time I watched that, I thought this was a kind of like a commentary on... like, you know, with when a society gets extremely wealthy, it has all this disposable income to spend on like plastic surgery and stuff. And I thought this person looked like plastic. And that was a deliberate sort of like, we're in the future here. People are modifying themselves. They don't really they look a bit weird. I didn't realize it was a non-Asian guy or non-Asian guys trying to be Asian. And, you know, that's quite problematic. But... anything else real quick? Oh yeah, I thought the future English Creole was kind of fun, if not a bit silly.
It was a little bit silly, but it was very effective, and it was nicely consistent. I thought it was basically pretty well done.
Exactly. What did you think?
Overall, I enjoyed it. There were specific things I didn't like, but overall, I did enjoy it. The first thing I've written down here, because I took a couple of notes while I was watching it, is what the hell is Tom Hanks' accent? In the 2012 segment, Tom Hanks he has a brief appearance as a gangster. Okay, sorry, we should clarify this. It has the same characters in each 6 segments, and they're playing different or the same actors in each 6 segments, and they're playing different characters each time.
Yeah.
Which is relevant for some of the problematic stuff that I'll get into in a bit. But in the 2012 segment, Tom Hanks' character, he only appears briefly, is a gangster who's written like a tell-all memoir about crime. Yeah. And is it supposed to be an Irish accent? Is it supposed to be like a working class London accent? It is awful. It's all over the place. I think it's meant to be Irish because you see his goons later and they have slightly better Irish accents. I think one of them is Irish, or I don't know, maybe I was just so put off that I was being suspicious of even actual Irish accents. But it was really bad.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. That bit annoyed me. I had forgotten about it actually until now, but I remember it annoying me because I am so sick of like stereotypes. I know that's like, you know, like that's nothing new. Like obviously stereotypes are bad, but I really dislike when people are all like, oh, Irish people, what are they good at? They fight and they drink. That's what they do. And it's just like, but no. And it's just like, I didn't like that whoever wrote this book was all like, oh, we're going to put an Irish character in. And of course they're going to be like, you know, a person who's prone to fighting and things. I'm just like, get out of it. Like, it really irks me. Yeah,
it wasn't great. Other things, the whole 2012 segment was kind of, the ending I felt was very flat, and that was a bit of a kind of stereotypical ending. Again, the old people escape from the horrible retirement home, and they end up in a bar in Scotland, and the staff from the retirement home follow them there, and they turn the Scottish patrons of the bar on them by saying that they're nasty English people. And again, that's like a really stupid, tiresome stereotype of Scottish people, that they also love to drink and fight. And also, just as an ending, that was a really flat ending, I thought. It just kind of stopped there. The story stopped there. And I didn't really get much of a resolution to Cavendish's story. It didn't. That one kind of felt that story kind of stuck out from the others.
Yeah, agreed.
Anyway, about the world building thing. Yeah, what you were saying there earlier, the stories all link together, but how they link together is each segment has a document that refers to the chronologically previous segment that the characters encounter. So the earliest segment, 1849, the lawyer writes about his experiences in the South Pacific. And then in the 1930s, Ben Whishaw, the composer guy, reads that, and he composes a symphony and writes letters to his lover. And then in the 1970s, Halle Berry reads those letters and hears the music. A novel is written about Halle Berry, which Timothy Cavendish reads in 2012, which Jim Broadbent reads in 2012. In 2144, there's a film about Jim Broadbent in 2012. And then in the last one, the 2300s, the writings of Duna Bay's character has become a sort of a scripture for the people there. And that's so I see what you're saying. They link together through internal documents within the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a major triumph of the movie and the novel it was based on is this scope. Like the fact that they were able to do this and make it just have a semblance of coherence about it is just it's a bit of a triumph. It's great.
Yeah. The yellowface thing, it was totally unnecessary. Like, so I'm just looking at it here. Jim Sturgis is the main, or the secondary character in the 2144 segment. He's like the guy that rescues San Mi. That's a white dude, and he's has makeup or whatever to look Asian. Also, Hugo Weaving in that, and whoever the guy that's interviewing San Mi are, they have both been changed to appear more Asian.
Oh yeah, Hugo Weaving, like Elrond as Asian, is weird.
But like, there's like they could just have been white people. In Seoul, like there's some other context in the novel that makes more sense of that they would have to actually be Korean. But yeah, it did kind of rub me the wrong way, and as I said, completely unnecessary. And I know they have to stick to the six character or the six actors reappear in the different time periods, but I don't know. And like they did other changing of things, like Halle Berry is Jewish in the 1930s one. I don't think Halle Berry is Jewish in real life, and Duna Bay, I don't think she's meant to be white in the. I don't think she's meant to be Asian in the 1849 one. I think she's meant to be white, but that's different. It's got a different cultural context associated there. So yeah, no, it rubbed me the wrong way a little. And Hugo Weaving in the 2012 one, I know that half of this film was directed by the Wachowskis, so it probably isn't this, but it would be very easy to read that as pretty transphobic.
You're going to need to explain. I don't know what you're talking about.
So Hugo Weaving is the nurse in 2012.
Hugo Weaving is the nurse in 2012. I don't think I copped that. Hugo Weaving is the nurse. You know the nasty abusive nurse in the retirement place. Yeah, that's Hugo Weaving.
That was Hugo Weaving, yeah. And yeah, I just like I don't know, having a man dressed as a woman play this scary, abusive character. I know it probably isn't the intent, but it feels a little uncomfortably close to a lot of transphobic stereotypes that are quite popular at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
So that I don't know. I know the Wachowskis were involved, so they have a better say in it than I do. But it put me off a little.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, yeah, I think the Wachowskis being there is mitigates the problem somewhat. But
they didn't direct that segment. So
no, that's the thing I want to talk about. There was other directors.
So the Wachowskis directed 1849 and the two future segments, and Tom Twyker, the German director. I think he's German.
No, but yeah.
Yeah, he's a German director. Did you ever see Run Lola Run?
No.
Okay, it's a very good German film. Or Perfume, The Story of a Murderer is another pretty famous one by him. Mm-hmm. He directed the 1930s, 1970s, and 2012 segments.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from there, for sure.
What else have I got written here? I thought there were small details that carried through, but they could have made a little bit more out of it, or made it a little bit more connected. I'm not sure. Tom Hanks in 1849 steals. He's this nasty doctor who's treating the lawyer character, and he steals like all the guy's money and jewels and things while he's treating him, because he's not actually treating him. He's keeping him sick so he can exploit him. And he steals a pretty button off his waistcoat, and I'm pretty sure that Tom Hanks in the latest segment, the 2300 segment, owns that button, and it like incorporates it into his necklace or something.
Oh, cool! I didn't clock that.
But I wasn't sure if that was the case. But they focused in on it very closely at one point, at one kind of plot critical point, and it looks quite similar. So I'm not sure what that is about. There could have been maybe a little bit more there, or maybe it's better to leave it a little bit guessing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, I think it's good to leave you guessing.
And I love the Soylent Green reference.
Oh Jesus! Have I even watched this film? What's the Soylent Green reference?
Have you ever seen Soylent Green?
No, but I know it as a cultural thing. Like,
okay, so I'm not going to say it because I think you either know it or you don't. Right? Most people know it. If you don't know the thing about Soylent Green, go and watch the film. It's a pretty good film, and it's got a really iconic ending. So I'm not going to spoil it for you if you don't know it.
Okay.
But as he's making his first attempt to escape from the nasty old folks home, Timothy Cavendish, Jim Broadbent, the actor, delivers the lines from the end of Soylent Green, and I thought it was really funny.
Oh yeah, no, that would have went totally over my head, 100% over my head.
Okay.
What did you think? Have you got more on the list there? Because we should probably not go back for it. You should finish off your list, and then I'll put in my final thing.
Tom Hanks accent, Soylent Green, Yellowface, details, Cavendish, Hugo Weaving. No, I've ticked off everything.
What did you think of the sort of structure of it? Like the idea of like there are 6 stories and they're told not sequentially, but like kind of almost on top of each other.
I thought it worked fine. Yeah, I thought it worked fine. Now, I didn't watch it in a single sitting. I watched it in 3 or 4 sittings because I watched some of it on a train station, and then on the train, and then in a library. So it was spread out over a day. So maybe that had some impact on it, but I thought it worked perfectly well. And there were the way it was put together, there were some parallels between things that were happening in the different periods that were shown together. One other thing. I thought the Neo Soul setting was a very generic sort of cyberpunk dystopia.
Yeah. For sure.
It was nothing groundbreaking in that sense, but it wasn't the focus, so it didn't really matter that much. And I thought the combat sequence in that was pretty bad.
We need to make it clear to everyone here, like, we actually enjoyed this movie. It doesn't sound like it. Like, it sounds like we hated it, but it actually is a good movie. It just has, like, a lot of small flaws.
Yeah, I enjoyed it with some reservations.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, the splicing up of the stories into little chunks. I'm unsure about that. Because, like, I was thinking about when I was watching, I was like, would any of these stories hold up if they were just told in the standard linear fashion? And I was like, probably not. Like, they're not really massively interesting. And, like, the cutting them up and splicing together like the way they did kind of makes it seem... hold on. What are you doing, cat? I think the cat is very much coming to the end of its time, and it is just peeing everywhere, man. So every time I hear a rustle of we line all our furniture with like bin bags and tarp and stuff to stop it from peeing on the furniture. Every time I hear a rustle, I'm like, what's happening? So sorry about that.
How many legs does the cat have?
How many legs? It has 4.
It has 4. Okay, so it's not a 3-legged incontinent. Okay.
It's not 3-legged incontinent.
Call back.
Yeah, so the splicing them together like that, I was kind of like, is this kind of a bit of a cheap trick to make otherwise kind of fairly bland stories seem kind of like artsy and interesting? You know, and I believe the novel does a similar thing, and I wonder would the same critique apply there? Like, have you actually, the dear person who has created the story, have you actually just made like 6 bland stories and like presented them in a way that makes them seem more interesting than they actually are? I'm unsure about that. I have a similar thing with time travel films. The last episode of Star Trek, or the last season of Star Trek, is falls in this category where it's like, as you're viewing it, the episode, say in a season, they seem random and disjointed, and then at the end you're like, oh, but time travel was involved. This is why. And it always feels like a bit of a cheap trick. Do you know what I mean? To make something that isn't that interesting kind of seem more interesting than it is.
Right.
So I don't know where I fall with Cloud Atlas. Like, some of the stories I think are weak and don't really hold up on their own. Some of them I think are interesting and strong. So I'm kind of like, I'm kind of 50-50 about it, you know?
Yeah. I'd be interested to see like a fan cut where it's done chronologically.
I believe they exist on YouTube.
Okay. I just had a look at the Wikipedia for the novel there, and the novel is not told entirely chronologically. Oh, sorry, it's not told at all chronologically, but the structure is different to the film.
Okay.
It tells each half. It tells half of each segment at a time, and then in the middle is the final, like the chronologically final segment in its entirety, and then it goes and revisits each of the other ones in reverse order. So it opens in 1849 and closes in 1849.
It's almost palindromic.
Yeah, it is. It's structurally palindromic.
I'm sure they had to change it up. You know, why moving things from novel to film involves invariably changing.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
But yeah, I might actually watch one of those supercuts where it's all spliced together linearly and see what I think.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was good. I thought there was some fun world building in it, not without its problems. The scope is kind of quite magnificent. And yeah, I got solid like 9 out of 12.
I don't particularly like the Wachowskis, so I enjoyed it more than I expected to.
Oh, interesting. Man,
yeah.
The first Matrix movie is golden. Like, can we agree on that?
Have you watched it in recent years? It has aged so badly.
Yeah, but like in the same way that like I know monster movies from back in the day have aged terribly, but like I think it holds up. I think it holds up as a visually it doesn't hold up, but I think kind of thematically it holds up, particularly with like, you know, people constantly talking about like you know, AIs taking over and all that sort of jazz. That kind of still holds. It's still like talked about in the Matrix. It still holds. Matrix 2 and 3 aren't great, and they never were great.
No,
but
I really didn't like V for Vendetta.
I'd never seen V for Vendetta, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know their style is just a little too polished for me. It's a little overly slick, and I find it becomes a little bit sterile at times.
I agree. I can get behind that. And also, there's a case to be made that they're shocking pretentious.
But I've heard Sense8 is great, so I might give Sense8 a chance. I've heard that's very, very good.
But yeah, there you go. Go check out Cloud Atlas, folks. Yeah, I think it's worth the watch.
Cool.
All right, so we're 2.5 hours in. Shall we call it there?
Well, 2 hours in.
I mean, even 2 hours is still long. Yeah, let's call it there.
Let's call it there.
Usual, thank you so much for listening, folks. Thanks for supporting the show on Patreon.
Thanks, friends.
Thanks for buying the merch. Thanks for like being in the subreddit, the whole shebang. Thanks for Bank of Artifexia. Y'all are absolutely great. Never ever change. Until next time, Edgar out.